Autonomy is the next topic here at the, let me check my sound. Bang. It's okay? Sorry, excuse me, I'll start again. Autonomy is the topic here at the vision stage at GreenTech. How far can we go with autonomy in greenhouses? Will growers be replaced? A very provocative question. And I'm delighted to be joined here by Bram Koppert from Priva, by Peter Steeneken from the TU Delft, and from Klaas van Egmond from Delphy. Greetings to you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Firstly, Bram, I mean, why would you autonomize? Just set the scene, please. Why do we need autonomous greenhouses?
I think if you really look broader than just the industry, you see all the trends. More demand of good food, growing population, but let's put that aside. I think as an industry, we get just pushed towards this. We can simply build more greenhouses faster, then we can educate people, not only the grower, but I would like to talk more about the growing teams, and that's just pushing us to that.
A human resource deficit at the end of the day,
yeah.
Which is to some extent being balanced out by more automation.
If you look at the history of horticulture, it was really growing in this industry. So seed companies developed new varieties, biological companies came with new pest control, new fertilizers, new chemicals. And step by step, the growers were educated in teams. Now you'll see the new developments in other countries, and we leapfrog these developments. We build it, we give the technology, but in the end, you need a team also to grow there.
There we see the team here up on the screen as well, working hard in a very automated situation by the looks of it. I think that's an image from maybe from you, Peter.
Yeah, this is one of the visions, of course. I'm not sure if it's the right vision, but eventually you would not need all those people behind the computers. You would want the computers to do everything for you, so you don't need as many people as currently, and also you don't need that expertise at every location. So you can actually have people train the computer, or at least you train the systems, and then they perform by themselves without resorting to these experts every time. So also, like Bram says, in countries where maybe that expertise is not as well developed, this can be a great solution.
Let's come to you, Klaas, if we can. Let's just give us a feeling, a gauge of where we are in terms of how autonomous already, let's say just in Europe, greenhouses are. On a scale of like 0 to 10, 10 being fully autonomous and everywhere is using autonomous greenhouses in Europe, where are we?
It's quite a complicated question, actually, because asking a grade for something like that, but I think when you're just looking at the market in Europe and you see all the greenhouse growers, there's still a lot of knowledge available at those greenhouses. So the urgency in a lot of European greenhouses is not present every day to automate it. They, of course, used already systems from companies like Priva to automate a lot of their processes. So I would say today they are at maybe a 5. If they would use all the technologies that are available, maybe they would already be at 7.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more potential than we are currently implementing in the greenhouse. And that goes step by step. It's also a big part is the social innovation needed. So training people to work with the digital services and really making it work in practice and trusting the algorithms that take the decisions for you.
Yeah, it sounds like a threat. Or is it a choice?
It is. I think it is a choice. For some people, it may be a threat. Yeah, like you have growers who can grow their crop really good nowadays. They have a lot of experience, and change is always difficult. So then it can become a threat to you personally. But I think, in generally speaking, it's not a threat to cultivation experts because eventually, even to build the digital models, you need to understand the process of growing crops. So the knowledge will always be needed.
And perhaps it allows them to work on, shall we say, higher value processes where they can really bring in their skills and their expertise. And just being naive, but walking around the greenhouse,
Exactly.
might be pleasurable, but it takes a lot of time and reduces their productivity, I guess.
Yeah, some time ago I talked to a grower from the Netherlands, and he wanted to expand abroad. And he said, now if I want to expand abroad and I do it in a traditional way, I can stay 1 week at home, I have to go 4 weeks there. But with digitalization, I hope I can do the other way around. I can stay 4 weeks at home and 1 week there, and then manage it remotely from the Netherlands. So that kind of opportunities rise when you use these new technologies.
So, Peter, it sounds quite promising in terms of the technological possibilities, but what is missing in the scene? Because we talked about a 7 being sort of the maximum at the moment, probably possible from 10 in terms of autonomous technologies.
Well, in my view, currently, of course, humans have very good perception. They have good eyes, ears, noses, and you need to replace all of that by technological systems. And at the moment, of course, the cameras are already very good. But for example, the electronic nose is not as good as the human nose yet. Also, the way you perceive the plant by electronics is not the same as a human does. But there's opportunities as well, because actually with technology you can detect things that you cannot detect by eye or by your nose. You can, for example, send electrical signals through the plant and detect how the plant reacts, and you can look inside of the plant. People are looking at ultrasound, like sound that is at frequencies that are higher than we can hear, and you can make a kind of echography of the inside of the plant and see, for example, if there's diseases, or look at the inner structure of the vessels of the plants. So these kind of opportunities are there.
Sensor technology,
yes,
to a very large extent, and new possibilities maybe that augment as well the instincts and the perceptions of humans.
And as well, instead of having a human walking all the time through your greenhouse, you can now position those sensors everywhere around the greenhouse. Those technologies are really becoming really low cost, so you can continuously monitor what's going on and also control the climate in the greenhouses to a much higher degree to give every plant the perfect environment.
Now, what kind of parameters are we looking at to measure, and how do you measure those? Just for a naive person, what kind of things are we looking to try and capture?
Well, there's the basic parameters like temperature, humidity, light intensity, but also more advanced ones. For example, you can smell the scents that are coming from the plant, and also detect, for example, insects. If there's a plague or a pest, you might detect it in a very early stage, even by the smell of the bugs.
Yeah, if I can add on to that,
Please.
like what I think is really important is, and that's also what we see, you can go different directions in digitization of the first step, which is sensing. You say as well, like we can replace the eyes and the nose of a human, but I think it is more important to look at the plant processes and to really look at what do you want to monitor in these plant processes to see how does my crop perform right now and what is optimal. So it's also really interesting that these things you normally wouldn't have thought of measuring the plant can contribute a lot to this digitization as well. Really looking directly at the plant processes which are there.
And are you suffering from a similar problem as in other industries, what to do with all the data, how to manage the data, who owns the data? Is that also an issue?
It can be an issue, but the first challenge we have to tackle is getting the good data. And especially like data from the crop environment, we can already get quite good thanks to companies like Priva. But getting data from the plant itself, which is actually really the factory which is producing your products, that is the important next step to really digitize it, because that is mainly observed by humans right now, and that needs to be digitized.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, and I think maybe with some controversy here as well, because I know the positions about autonomy and the level of autonomy which is necessary versus the role of the grower. There's not a uniform consensus here.
I think, if you look at the current generation of Priva automation, it's as good as the user is. Yeah, so it has so much functionality that if you're a good grower, you can run a perfect crop. You can improve it with new technologies. So on both sides, and there's where we maybe a little bit disagree, but on both sides you can improve. So both with the Dutch growers where we can still use new technologies, new ways of looking at the plant with new knowledge about it towards an autonomous greenhouse. And of course, we can make major steps where that knowledge is missing. Yeah.
Good. So we can also, capture that expertise somehow and use it elsewhere.
And it's a very interesting question that you just asked about, okay, what is it with the data? Who is the owner of the data? And there I very much agree with this. The ownership of data is easy to do. We're not the first industry digitalizing, right? It's technologies that have been developed already, but what can you do with it? What do you see extra, and what do you need to see especially extra? Yeah.
Give us your vision of the greenhouse of the future.
Hi, that's a very dangerous one, maybe. If you look at the greenhouse history, it's actually a very old technology that we are using. We modernized it with better glass, smaller aluminium to get more light, screens. I believe that we go in another direction in the coming 10 years, that we don't see the way, for example, looking at tomatoes, we don't grow it in the way we do it now. We are going towards a more productive production system, like we see in factories, much more getting the work towards the people to do the work, where now we get inside. Let's see how far we get.
Okay,
Almost
so like
factory style.
Like factory
Yes.
style, like bands, mass production.
Yes, I
in
do
the
believe we get
greenhouses
further
themselves.
than that. Yes,
Okay, which will need more automation.
luckily, that's a big, a big opportunity for us at least.
Peter, I assume you're not going to disagree, but there are other elements of the vision of the future which I'm sure you would like to contribute to.
Yes, well, I think there might also arise more diversity in the types of greenhouses. So you'll have probably the big production greenhouses, but maybe also greenhouses will move closer to the user. So there might be greenhouses that are really producing the food at the place where it's needed. And if you don't need a grower in every greenhouse, that will become more feasible in my view.
So plug and play greenhouses all over the world controlled by one person in Westland.
Exactly, this is one of my, not per se Westland, I think right now we are up front, but there are a lot of places in the world where is green knowledge available. But what I think is the challenge towards the future is leveraging the knowledge of the people who manage these greenhouses. So besides the whole labor side of things, which we don't really address in this conversation, there's a big question or a big demand for the green knowledge needed, because the growth of sustainable greenhouse production worldwide is limited actually by the managers people can find to manage the greenhouses. So to leverage that knowledge and to make one person not grow on 10 hectares but 100 hectares, and you get into control rooms like you see here, where a few people are controlling a lot of greenhouses worldwide, that I think will be the future, not only for greenhouse technology, but maybe also for the Dutch sector. If we want to stay successful, you have to leverage that knowledge that we have available in that way.
But that takes a lot of training, and in some cases, I guess, also retraining. And I guess that some growers, but I imagine, are resisting as well that change to some extent and say, no, leave your devices at home. Or
Yeah, as Delphy, we have over 200 cultivation experts on board in our company. And indeed, it takes a lot of training. But I think a lot of people are more willing to go there if they see the impact they can make with their work. Because the impact they can make with their work is that they can support even more food and flowers being grown around the world. So if they see that, then it's about if you really want it, and then you can do it. It's not about if you can do it, but if you want to do it.
Does that also inspire people to join the horticulture industry, maybe young professionals or students, and to get engaged? Is that a major motivation?
Yeah, I was just talking with Peter about a master thesis student who has started the beginning of September at Delphy, doing the studies in computer science. Never been in a greenhouse before he was at Delphy. And he's really motivated to learn and to get involved. So you see more and more that it attracts, especially also young people who really want to make the world a better place and help fix the challenges we are facing.
And also from very different disciplines.
Yes, and that's needed. Especially the other disciplines like people from TU Delft with computer science background.
How are you designing those programs at Delft, and how do you also make courses and qualifications like that interesting to, let's say, high schoolers?
Yeah, so there's a big trend towards artificial intelligence, machine learning. So yeah, most students they engage in studying those topics at an earlier stage. And at TU Delft, there's many courses actually training them in that direction. I think the application to horticulture is relatively new, and I think that's also attractive to those students, because there you can really still make an impact with those technologies. And like Klaas said, the University of Delft is not really a university aiming at agri-food, but nowadays students are really interested and really coming towards this. Oh, this is cool. We want to contribute to that topic.
And your colleague Lisa Lotte was the chair of the jury for the Innovation Award yesterday. She's responsible for the business development in the agri department at Delft. So I'm sure she's doing a lot of work to encourage people to get involved in this sector.
Yeah, she was instrumental for setting up the AgTech Institute in TU Delft, bring together all the experts in that area that are interested in agri-food technology. And nowadays there's huge networks of companies connected already, where we are starting up all kind of projects.
Bram, how is Priva sort of training and retraining and refreshing your human resources?
Oh, that's the biggest challenge I think we have, and that is many companies face. We are lucky that we are growing that fast, and that we have actually the opportunity to grow also, especially in the teams, and both recruiting from within the industry and outside the industry is necessary to get the right skills. Especially if you look at our data science team, cloud team, there is plenty of people from the big names joining us, and that needs to help to push this industry and Priva to the next level.
Yeah, it's quite incredible to see that multidiscipline approach, and how people who in the past would say, no, I want to be in the computer programming industry, it doesn't really exist anymore. It's all moved into the vertical sectors almost, Peter.
Yeah, that's true. So it's so people are exploring new directions, and well, we're now also starting projects. For example, together with Delphy, we're looking at like this student, but also other students, to actually implement those technologies, place the sensors inside of these research greenhouses to test them, and then eventually implement the technologies together with companies like Priva.
And I presume it's a global program, that you have lots of people from all around the world involved with that, and are able to come to the Netherlands as a test bed, really, to build their expertise?
Yes, well, most of these students, they are now also asking me, okay, are there projects in the Netherlands related to agri-food? And also, indeed, technological experts. We have people from India, for example, joining our consortia, and we have a joint project proposal as well in that direction to collaborate, also implementing this kind of technology worldwide.
Good. I'm sure we don't need to say so, but anybody who's looking for great talent and students and projects, and you guys are already engaged with that, can of course knock on Delft's door.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's, Klaas, come to the sort of the future a little bit. We talked about sort of at the moment getting up to 7 on the scale of 0 to 10. How far could it potentially go in terms of autonomy? And when do you expect that threshold to be reached?
I think the question should not be how far could it potentially go, but how far do you want it to go? I think the last few years, a lot of the focus has been on autonomous greenhouse management. Well, actually, right now we developed our systems to make autonomous greenhouse management, but then you're going to look for a problem which can be solved with autonomous greenhouse management. So it was a little bit the other way around in the sector. So it should be more focused on what is the problem you're trying to solve and how can you solve it. And that's not always with fully autonomous management, but by making the management much more scalable using digitization. And I think we can get very far. You have like different processes in the greenhouse, and it's always about managing the limiting factor. You have processes like climate, irrigation, labor. It's always about managing that limiting factor and making sure that that is up and running. So that is also in the discussion, like we can already fully, Priva does it, we do it, we can fully autonomously control the climate and the irrigation, but things like labor still need to be monitored and make sure that they are done right. So it's about these different processes in the greenhouse and how far can you get those. And I think a few of these processes we already have ticked off, but there are also ones left we still need to tackle. Like labor, for instance, with robotics, but also things like fertilization, which is not fully done yet, and determining what actions should be precisely done at the crop. Plagues and diseases still have to be done. A lot of the interventions are still determined by a manager or a consultant.
Would you like to add to that, Bram?
Yeah, I would say our ambition is definitely push it as far as we can. And I think we can get there 100%. But it's step by step, and it is also depending on which environmental factors you combine with it. Climate, we can do, no problem. Labor, we will get there soon. We have robotics. But then, are you going to connect to sustainable energy sources? Can you connect that also autonomously? Definitely we can. We're not there yet. But if you can make that kind of combinations, then you really go towards a predictive and autonomous greenhouse. We will get there one day.
Yesterday you made a very interesting announcement as Priva, all in the robotic space. Would you like to explain that a little bit to us?
Yeah, it's very nice to be, I would say, back with Compano. We released it before. It took us 10 years to develop, but still we are the first with a de-leafing robot for tomato crops. And it's fantastic to see that there is now the commercial rollout. There was a contract signing, commercial contract, which was one of the major growers in the Netherlands. So that there's really the confirmation that where this industry goes, what is needed. We're now facing a lack of skilled labor for greenhouse labor. It's waiting for the technicians to be next, I think, when the robotics goes further.
So let's just talk a little bit to conclude our session about sort of market opportunities, if we can. So Klaas, where do you see sort of some major trends, not societal trends, but in markets which are developing quickly, especially for autonomous greenhouses?
I think the thing you're trying to find is the fit between the problem and the solution. And then we see right now bigger companies abroad, a lot of times, with investors behind them. They want to scale up. Also, maybe Dutch companies also want to scale up, and they are looking for how can I manage my company on a bigger scale, and that's where digitalization comes in.
Any particular regions that come to mind, or?
I think it's almost all over the world where you can especially apply high-tech greenhouses. So it's going towards the west, but also the east, from US, Canada to Russia and surrounding countries, China, Australia even. So there are a lot of different places where maybe sort of Westland regions are popping up.
Bram, you've not been asleep the last 18 months, I'm sure, but it's also been an exciting time then, but we've noted here a lot of dynamics in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. It's quite exciting times to be involved in this sector.
It is. Certainly, and I just actually moved from an exciting growth place, which is China, where the horticulture industry is expanding so fast, but where we very clearly see the need for autonomous growing and the need for putting this knowledge in a digital system and helping them. So I agree. These are exciting times and lots of work to do.
Things are moving very fast. With that, gentlemen, we'll conclude the session. Thank you very much. Thank you to our audience here, lots of people in the room, and to everybody who's at home tuning in. And stay tuned, please, because in 20 minutes' time, we have an Impulse presentation all about how to attract capital investment into horticulture, particularly from a family investment perspective and what that means in terms of values and helping society. It's going to be quite a thought-provoking session, I can promise that, in 20 minutes' time here at the Vision stage. Thank you very much.